So it took me a few months to read The Talisman because it's a huge book and I was picking it up and putting it down in between other things. And then once they officially announced that Other Worlds Than These, which is The Talisman 3, is coming this year, I picked up my pace and finally, finished the book, which is a great book. Some parts were a little slow moving, but overall, it had some characters that were truly wonderful. Wolf being one of them. Wolf right here and right now. This follows the story of this character, Jack Sawyer. Traveling Jack. His mom is really ill. Jack is 12 years old. He's tall for his age, so people kind of mistake that he's a little older than how old he actually is. And him and his mom, they go to New Hampshire and they go and stay at this hotel called the Alhambra Hotel. And this is, I believe, where Jack was actually conceived. His father has died. One of his other uncles had died, and then there's this other uncle, Uncle Morgan, who seems a bit of a evil, bully, horrible person who keeps kind of harassing them, and that was his father's business partner. Lily, his mom, is very ill, and it seems like she probably has cancer. So now she's dying. Uncle Morgan keeps badgering her to sign these papers, this, that, and the other, and it seems like he just wants to take over the full business, and he keeps saying, oh, you and Jack will be all set, this, that, and the other, but she doesn't want to do it. And so they go to this hotel. I think for Lily, there was a lot of memories and just a place that she wanted to be where they had some good memories attached to it because she knows she's dying. Jack doesn't really know what to do with himself a whole lot while he's there, and he finds there's this amusement park that's quite close, and he starts wandering over there and he meets this guy named Speedy Parker. Speedy keeps alluding to things like maybe they'd met before, and he calls him Traveling Jack, which was something his father used to call him. All this strange stuff is going on, and then at some point he's walking back to his hotel where him and his mom are staying, and there's this vortex in the sand where he hears this voice, and it sounds like his Uncle Morgan's voice. And at some point he learns, kind of through Speedy Parker, that there is a way that he can save his mom, and he has to go find this thing called the Talisman, and he's going to have to travel between the territories, which is between this dimension and another. And the territories is something that's kind of tied into the Dark Tower series that Stephen King wrote. And then there's also this idea of twinners, which is in our world, you may have a possible twin in this other dimension. I've been told that the next book in the series, The Black House, has even more of a tie-in to the Dark Tower. And then with the third one coming, the title of it, Other Worlds Than These, obviously that definitely has a tie-in. Jack finds out that there's a way he can possibly save his mother if he can believe it. Speedy kind of fills him in, and he gives him this juice that's basically some sort of maybe hobo wine or whatever. And it's really awful tasting, but it flips him into the territories when he drinks it. Apparently, when he was younger, he used to be able to just flip himself there, but he kind of lost that talent. And then his dad had traveled between the territories and whatnot, and he didn't really know, and his mom didn't really quite know, but maybe they knew a little bit of something, but they just weren't sure what it was. Jack always chalked it up to being daydreams or something along those lines. And so once he comes to be okay, this is possibly real, I can possibly save my mom, we can get out from Uncle Morgan's thumb or whatever his evil machinations are, he sets off on this journey. He's going to have to go from coast to coast, basically, all the way from New Hampshire to California to this place called Point Venuti, where there is a place called the Black Hotel that houses this talisman that he needs to heal his mom and basically save the frickin' world, because if someone like Uncle Morgan were to ever get his hands on it, it would be bad news bears. And the talisman, it reminds me of some of the different orbs that they had in the Dark Tower series, because it's like a crystal ball basically, and it holds all the worlds. And yeah, it's not like the rose in the Dark Tower if you read the series, but it has that very similar kind of feeling to it. And I felt like this book has such similar, the adventure, the journey, the people you meet along the way has very similar Dark Tower kind of vibes. And so I could easily see how this will mesh into coming through there and whatnot. And so Jack starts his journey, and there's so many things that happen along the way. The people he meets, one of the characters, Wolf, is just a brilliant, bright beam of light, but Wolf also turns into a werewolf. And when that happens, you need to not be anywhere near Wolf because he has a hard time controlling his urges. Jack has a lot of different weird experiences when he flips in and out of the territories because he goes in between. Like, he'll be over there and then he'll come back because Morgan is tracking him, and Morgan has a twinner, and Morgan's twinner is like this weird, evil, kind of like monstrous thing. And there are creatures over there that seem like half human, half monster that kind of work with Uncle Morgan, who is basically evil. And to me, it reminded me of the Low Men in the Dark Tower. Sorry if I keep tying everything into the Dark Tower, but Stephen King likes to tie everything into the Dark Tower. It's all throughout his book series, so it's some more so than others. But Uncle Morgan sucks. He's evil. Yeah, the whole time Jack is basically running from him because Uncle Morgan is trying to stop him from getting to the talisman. And at first he doesn't really think Jack's that big of a problem, but as time goes on and Jack gets closer and closer, Uncle Morgan starts to realize, oh yeah, maybe he is. Some of the stuff that happens, he ends up working at this bar in this town called Oatley for this horrible guy who abuses the woman that he's with that works at the bar with them, and Jack like sleeps in the tap room, and he's just trying to make some money so he can get out of there. And then he runs into one of like Morgan's low men there, who's one of the twinners of this other guy in the other, like in the territories in the other dimension and stuff. And eventually he's able to like get out of there. There's a point in time when he meets Wolf, and right after he meets Wolf, Morgan like busts into the world and tries to kill them, but they escape. He brings Wolf over to our world, and Wolf can't handle how bad it smells. Like, everything just smells so bad because in the territories, not everything's been ruined and polluted by all the garbage and pollution that we have here. And so like Wolf like can't handle it. And he can smell so many things though. He can smell emotions. He can smell death. Like, there was a man that was, because Jack's been hitching across the country to try to get to California. How else is he going to get there besides walking and hitching? So, and Wolf is just like, he can't get in cars because of the smell. Some of the people smell like they're dying, and Wolf can't handle that, and like flips out. And then the first time Wolf changes to a werewolf, and Jack has to be like locked into a shed. And then they end up in this wayward home for boys run by this Sunlight Gardener guy. And he's like, you know, he pretends he's all like, praise God and all this, but he's an evil sack of crap, as things seem to go in these places. So eventually Jack gets out of that, and then he goes and he's trying to meet up with Morgan Sloat's son, Richard, who's like his best friend. And Richard is not an evil sack of crap, and Richard has a part to play in this as well as they make their way closer to California. And then Richard has all these memories too that he kind of like suppressed throughout his life because he knew more. He just didn't want to know his dad was such an evil, heinous garbage monster, just a really horrible whatever. I wouldn't even call him human at the point he gets to. It is such a good book. I loved it so much. I don't know like why it took me so long to read it. Like, I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to read 20 pages at a time, you know, because I'm trying to read other books and stuff. And then I just hit a point where I was just like, nope, kept reading, and then finished it within a couple days. But yeah, it took me a couple months of picking it up, putting it down. It's just always so overwhelming when you have a book that size. But there's truly lovable characters in this. Like, Wolf is the best. Jack was great. Man, Richard, poor Richard. What a guy. And then Sloat is a truly reprehensible, evil character. Just the way that King and Peter Straub write characters is fantastic. It's like there's this in-depth, deep dive that you get so many details. And like, I may say, yeah, you know, it takes me forever to read these big books. But the thing about that, when you have a book that big, it allows for more details and more character and more story and more robustness. And I know not everyone wants that, and sometimes stuff does drag a little bit in areas here and there, but overall, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I'm super excited to read the next one. Yeah, that ended, and I was like, wow, this is, for me, that was like the banger of a book. So we'll have to see how the next one is. I've been told that it's quicker to get into the story, so a bit faster moving. I wanted to actually buy that instead of getting that one at the library, so it might be a week or two before I get that one. If you haven't read The Talisman and you're a fan of Stephen King and Peter Straub, and if you like the Dark Tower series too, it's got that vibe. The whole story had that vibe to me. What else? What else can we say about that book? I don't know. It ruled. Doyle rules. If you like Stephen King, if you've enjoyed his fantasy, if you like Peter Straub, if you like the way that he writes, like the combination of those two together, I thought was really fantastic. If that sounds good to you, definitely check it out. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.